Welcome back. If you joined us for part one, I'm so glad you're here for part two. And if you're just jumping in, you may want to go back and start there. Either way, let's dive in.
So my first thought was, I don't look like somebody who has cancer, so I don't want to tell anybody that I have cancer. But then I also learned, and when you go through things, it affects your community. And community was something my husband and I didn't have a very solid basis in. I thought we did, but we didn't. And we learned that as I went through and got my diagnosis. Some people moved away. Some people just, for whatever reason, it's not their fault. It's they've had an experience with cancer, they've had a loss with cancer, they don't know what to say, they don't know what to do, so they just kind of disappear. Some people I didn't tell at all. And then, later when they found out 6 months down the road, it's like, why didn't you tell me? So that's something I would have done differently. I certainly would have shared it. I think the only person who knew that I had questions about things, probably aside from my husband, was my mom. And I remember I only called her one time, and that was when I got a bill. And I called her and I said, I don't know if we should go forward with treatment because the bill is so much money. I don't know what to do. But I think that was the only time that I ever said anything that wasn't, we're going to beat this. We got this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, I definitely think some vulnerability would have been good. There's a strength in allowing other people to support you. There's a courage in allowing other people to support you. And I didn't realize that at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I
Well,
had always,
I think it's hard to be vulnerable for so many people. It's hard
sure,
to like, especially if you're, the wife, the mother, the woman that's supporting everybody else. It's really hard to like let your guard down and be the one that's taking the support as opposed to giving the support. And so I think that's a really common thing specifically for women in general is like, when you're the one that's like caretaking everyone and helping everyone, and then when you have to then be the one receiving it, it's like very uncomfortable. It's like really easy to give a compliment sometimes, but hard to take one. It's the same kind of thing.
sure.
It's like that
Yeah.
care for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always been extremely independent, and I still see this with my husband. If I can't fix the printer, I get frustrated because I can't fix the printer, and then he comes and says, "Let me fix it." And it's like, "No, no, no. I've tried everything. I've done everything. You can't fix it either." And then he turns around and fixes it.
And then he touches one button and it's fixed.
Yeah, absolutely. It happens every time.
You warmed it up for him.
Absolutely. Yeah, I tried everything but. So, but I've always been very independent, and I've always been someone who wants to do it myself. And
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to do this myself. And I had a lot of learning. There were a lot of lessons. So, life is either a win or a lesson. That's how I look at it. There is no failure in there.
I love that. And I have a similar mantra that say to women often. It's like, when everything's going perfectly, you're not really learning anything. You're just enjoying the
Absolutely.
ride. You're like, this is a smooth yacht ride with some nice yacht rock. Yes.
And what fun is
But
that?
yeah, but when it's hard, when you're failing or when it's not going perfect, that's when you're learning. That's when you're growing. That's when you're learning. And it's uncomfortable and it's less than ideal because we want it to be like everything to be just fabulous, but that's just not the reality. Like, the people that have had the most incredible lives and have impacted the most people, they had gone through terrible things.
Hmm.
It's a common thing. So I think that's a really good, I absolutely agree with you that um you're saying it's either a win or a lesson. I love that. How do you think when you're facing something you can't control, like a diagnosis or a major life disruption like homelessness, how do you navigate the balance between taking action and letting go? Because I think so many people are just like frozen. They don't know what to do. They don't know where to take action. They don't know what they should let go of and what should they hang on to for dear life. How
Sure.
do you?
That's where people get stuck when you don't know what to do. Um, you know, major life disruptions force you to confront that lack of control. But keeping in mind that letting go doesn't mean giving up. So you can let go without being passive. It's two separate things. You just have to learn the difference between what you carry and what you don't. What belongs to you and what doesn't belong to you. So during cancer, I focused on what I could control. That was advocacy for myself, asking questions, setting boundaries, controlling my environment at home, who I allowed into my support system. And, granted, I didn't do it, I would do it differently now, but I did it the way that I did it. And then eventually leaving that toxic job. One of the hardest things that I had to learn how to do, and it was really more about taking control, was learning to advocate for myself. From a medical standpoint, the hospitals are busy. They do the best that they can. They're doing what they're told to do. There are systems in place and all of that. There was one point where I was told that I had to wait 10 weeks for an appointment. And 10 weeks is too long for
That's
a
a
cancer
long
patient.
time.
It's just too long for a cancer patient. And when I pushed back and said, "Is that the only appointment you have available?" They said, "That's the only appointment that we have." And, I had to, it was hard. It was hard for me to advocate for myself, even as strong as I am. I didn't want to piss off the doctors. I didn't want to piss off the medical team. I didn't want to do anything that was going to change the quality of care that I got. So learning how to do that was really hard. It was difficult to speak up when things didn't feel right. And I was afraid that if they didn't like me, it would affect the quality of my care, going back to what people think about you.
Yeah.
And I had to learn that my needs mattered and that was something I could control. So go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think that is so such an important point because I think when we get rare diagnoses or when we get very daunting ones,
Hmm.
when our diagnosis is more than a sliver, okay. I think the thing that's so interesting is that you don't understand when you're healthy and you're not dealing with something like this. You assume that, you coming to the doctor, you're going to be a priority and, they all super care. Well, the reality is just like you said, the hospitals are busy, the doctors are busy. They are churning people in and out. And unfortunately, that's the reality. So we have to be our biggest advocates because they're going to miss something. There's going to be something they don't know the answer to. There's going to be something that they maybe the 10 weeks is like, the average patient time frame of waiting for an appointment. But when you push back and say, no, I need to get in right now. I'm not sure if you've read my chart, but I need to be seen this week or next week. Like, I think we don't understand how important it is to advocate for ourselves. And we kind of don't learn that until we get put in a situation like you're in and you're like, oh my gosh, now I have to like do this. I feel my weakest and I have to be my strongest because I'm scared. I don't know the answer. I don't know the outcome, but I know I need to get in there and I know they need to look at this chart again. And I know they need to, so I think that's such an important point because because advocating for ourselves often can be very hard. And you're right. You do want them to like you. You don't want to be a pain. You don't want to be like, and then have them be like, ugh, like there's Carrie. Ugh, it's like
Absolutely.
that you're like, I need the best care. Like, so I want you to be like, oh, yay, there's Carrie. Let's help her thrive.
Right.
Right.
Right. I had to learn that asking questions wasn't wrong and that taking control didn't make me a difficult patient or a difficult person. So, there were still uncontrollable things. There were times I had to wait for appointments. I couldn't control the diagnosis. I certainly couldn't control the uncertainty or the outcomes as far as what happened with the treatment. Those things were just going to happen. But I think finding peace comes from focusing on the choices that we do have and just because we accept something doesn't mean that we stop fighting for ourselves. We stop standing up for ourselves. So that's kind of where strength comes when you're able to choose. I would much rather choose than be told what I'm going to do. I would much rather you give me options and let me pick one than tell me what I'm going to do. Because if you tell me what I'm going to do, I'm going to probably tell you that
Probably
I'm
do the
not.
opposite.
Yeah, I'm probably going to tell you I'm not going to do it. So it's asking, what is in my power right now? And sometimes that's going to be a huge life change. And sometimes it's going to be getting through the next 5 minutes. Both matter. It just depends on where you are at the time.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is like feeling like you don't want to be an imposition or like you
Hmm.
don't want to be, like it's like I think actually, quite frankly, the doctors prefer someone that is speaking up because they are seeing so many people and they are like assuming that they are know anything deeply about your particular case. Is It's not an imposition. I think that's something that I've taken away from my health battles. Is it's not an imposition, it's a reminder. Hey, I'm here. I'm patient X. And
Hmm.
here's a quick rundown reminder of all this stuff that I live and breathe every day, but that you haven't seen in 2 months or whatever,
Right,
you know, and
right.
it's not an imposition. I think it's actually really helpful for them. So I think it's a good reminder that if somebody out there is going through this for the first time, that and you're feeling like an imposition, or you're feeling like, ugh, I don't want them to be mad at me. I feel like many doctors, and I've heard this from different doctors, like it's actually helpful. So
Hmm.
where you're feeling like it might be an imposition, actually maybe shift it in your mind, like I'm being helpful. I'm giving them information that maybe they didn't know they needed right to have right in front of them right now.
Right, right. And I know that I have a stellar oncology team. I do. And I know that they care. It's just, learning how to balance those feelings. And again, that comes back to the stories you tell yourself, doesn't it?
Mhm. Mhm. You've said something I really like. You said you don't have to wait until it's over to start becoming someone new. And I love this so much because I think we put so many limitations on, well, when I make X amount of money, when I marry this person, when I have these kids, when I la 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 la, the list goes on. So what does it look like to start becoming even when you're not fully there yet?
Sure. We don't we want to wait for clarity until before we do something? I mean, wouldn't it be easier if you knew for sure that it was going to work
Less
or it was
less
the right
scary
answer?
for sure. Less scary for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. People think that they have to be fully healed, fully confident, fully certain before they move. And that's not true at all. In fact, that's rarely the case. Transformation, again, doesn't look inspiring from the inside. It's in the messy middle where you make those moves, those uncertain moments uh, that get you where you need to go. You have to move. You have to become before you believe. You just have to. It may be setting boundaries. It may be asking for help. It might be leaving a harmful environment. It might be speaking up instead of staying quiet. One major shift for me was learning to rest. And I have never been somebody who would not do something because I was tired. And the tired that came with chemo and came after chemo was just so different that, I had to learn to say, I'm setting boundaries. I'm not doing this. I'm going to rest today. And then not feel guilty for doing that. Um, I used to equate my worth with my productivity. And part of that also went back to, I wanted people to like me. I wanted people to show up. If somebody called me and said, let's do something in the evening, now most of the time I say no. I don't do a lot in the evening because that's my time. That's my time to rest. That's my time to wind down. Um, I used to feel guilty for saying no. Oh, I have tickets for this. I want to do that. Would you like to, you know, no, I'm sorry. I just don't do those things anymore. because I have to take care of myself. And going back to what we talked about earlier, self-care is so important. You can't fill from that empty cup. You can't serve someone else if your cup is empty, if you're exhausted. You have to take care of yourself first. But rest felt uncomfortable. It felt irresponsible to me for a long time. And that was a big change that I had to make. So my
Yeah,
future self,
I think
she
that's I think that's true for most women. Like, we're used to
absolutely.
going, 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 work, 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 work. And it's like, oh my gosh, if I took a nap or if I got a massage, oh my God, that would be terrible. Like,
Or
it's like, no, it wouldn't.
if I said no, I didn't want to do that, or no, I can't do that for you, or no, I can't show up with you, maybe you won't like me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you won't like me. Maybe you won't be friends with me. Well, it's amazing when you make that shift in your mind and you let go of that. That is the most freeing thing when you think about how you're going to care for yourself. I'm not telling you I have everything figured out, but I've gotten that piece down. I've gotten that piece down. I've gotten
and
some practice there.
and I interrupted you a little bit. You were going to say something about your future self. So how does your future self look at that?
Right. And my future self, that's one of those things that is a priority because I'm the priority. And it comes from a lifetime of not making myself the priority. But we do that. And we as women do that. You know, cancer or no cancer, we as women do that. We put other people first, everyone else first, instead of ourselves. So, you know, the becoming happens in the uncertainty. Small choices make big differences that sometimes we don't realize until later on down the road. But we don't see our own transformation. A lot of times it's other people that sees it in us, sees that change.
Well, and I posted something the other day that was the caterpillar and the butterfly talking to each other over coffee, and
I remember.
the caterpillar is saying, what I want to change, and the butterfly's like, but we're supposed to. And I love that so much. I have had this little saying. I had a magnet on the fridge for my daughter when she was younger, just like, you are becoming something great. Like, it's scary because literally a caterpillar is dying and it's becoming a butterfly. Like, that, these are very transformational things and
Hmm.
imagery and concepts, but that's really how it is for us too. Like, the old us is, that's going away. We're shedding. If you don't want to look at it as like that part is dying, but it's shedding so that you can become this more fabulous creature, this more amazing, more insightful person. And that's very exciting, but it's so scary because it's literally a different person. It's
Yeah.
literally now you have wings, and
Right?
trust your wings, trust your wings.
Right.
Um, I
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's the future self. I mean,
Mhm.
when I think about my future self, she feels more at peace with herself and her life. She still deeply cares about people and justice and integrity and compassion. But she doesn't abandon herself in the process. She rests without guilt, you know? She has stronger boundaries. So go ahead.
I was gonna say, one of the things, you're talking about boundaries and saying no to, like, I don't do that thing at night now. I'm able to say no and not feel guilty. But you also say that hard things aren't meant to be navigated alone. And so why would you say connection, even though it's important to have your boundaries, why would you say that also at the same time connection is such a critical part of getting through life's hardest moments?
Yeah, I think that many people believe that they should handle things alone. I did. For the
Hmm.
longest time, I lived that mindset. You know, some of us are very independent, used to being the strong one, and we're more comfortable helping other people instead of helping ourselves or asking for help. But major life disruptions really reveal isolation. And I think community is a big part of spirituality in its own way. It's relationship. It's relationship with ourselves, relationship with other people, relationship with, you know, our environment, and even relationship with a higher power. But when I think about spirituality, I'm thinking about community. So people need more than solutions. They need presence. They need someone to sit with them in the messy middle, someone to sometimes just be there. You know, sometimes that's all you can do is just show up and be there. You don't have to have the answers. But a lot of times, you know, isn't it funny how if someone else believes in us, that helps us believe in ourselves?
So true. And also, like when you're going through something terrible,
Hmm.
whether it's divorce or death or illness, um, it's terrifying in general and stressful. But if you can lean on those connections that you spoke about, it can make it bearable.
Sure.
And if you don't have those connections, then you're just sitting in the silence and terror alone. And it makes everything so much harder. And it's like if we can allow ourselves to be vulnerable in that terrifying, messy middle, it can actually heal us so much quicker and help us through it so much easier than if we are trying to be stoic and try to do it alone, or if we're embarrassed, or if we're whatever the reason is. It's like if we can let our guard down for a minute and lean on those connections, it can actually make it so much better.
Yeah, relationships help regulate us emotionally, and healing doesn't happen in isolation. So it's important. Those relationships are important. It's important that we do things together. Um, you know, it's so interesting in the cancer community. You know, everybody is a coach, everybody is an advocate, and there are so many lonely people. And it just struck me. And that's kind of why I've built my business. That's what led me to start building my business as a crisis coach. Being the strong one to be vulnerable like that is really hard. And other people certainly can't do the healing for you, but they can do it with you. They can do it as, you know, as a supportive function. So, and I think allowing support is courageous. It's brave, especially if you're somebody who's been hurt by relationships or connections in the past. It's really hard to be vulnerable and allow that again. But it's so, so, so important. Humans weren't ever meant to do life by themselves. I just believe that 1,000%.
If someone listening right now feels like their life has taken a turn that they didn't choose or that they don't want, what's the first step, in your opinion, that in taking that pen back and starting to rewrite that story? Or are there things that they can do to start rewriting that story? Like, are there things that you would recommend um, that helps them feel like they're getting back control and they're rewriting the story?
I think the first step is to stop pretending that nothing has changed.
That's such a good one.
So it's about honest acceptance. And acceptance doesn't mean hopelessness. So where we get stuck and where we stay stuck is when we're trying to go back. That's where you get stuck. And when you can't feel like you can't move because you can't get back to where you were, you don't know where you're going. It's scary, right? So I think it's really important to acknowledge that I've gone through this thing and this thing changed me.
Hmm.
This thing changed me. Or to say, this hurts or this is hard. I mean, cancer sucks. It just does.
Agreed.
It was a gift, but it was a gift that sucked.
Hmm.
And it can be both. So, acceptance, stop pretending that nothing has changed, and then ask, where do you go from there? Little choices, baby steps count. it's more about consistency, taking the same small step consistently, than it is about making giant leaps. I'm not one for giant leaps. I'm not good at them. So, but the other thing that I've learned, and more recently than not, is I've learned that if we don't learn a lesson and we're supposed to learn a lesson, the lesson's going to repeat.
Keeps coming back for us, doesn't it?
It does.
It's like, you thought you were gonna get rid of me, but here I am again,
So
rearing
if you
my
don't
ugly
learn the
head.
lesson, yep, you're going to learn it again. And one thing that I finally have figured out is I want to quit doing the hard thing. And it's a really funny example, but a good example would be me and Diet Pepsi. I love Diet Pepsi. I love Diet Pepsi. I do. And I have quit drinking Diet Pepsi so many times in my life.
I tell you
I
what,
just,
girl, it must be the name because I also love Diet
do
Pepsi.
you? Okay. And I've given it up and I've given it up and I've given it up. And then I've given it up and said, unless I go to the movies. Or I've given it up and said, unless I have a special occasion. And then the next thing you know, I'm drinking 2 liters of Diet Pepsi again. And I finally figured out I don't want to keep doing the hard thing. I'm tired of doing the hard thing. And the only way to stop doing the hard thing is to stop doing the hard thing and then not do it again. So I've made a decision that, it's for me, it's just like a gateway drug. I can't do it. So that's where I'm at. But I don't want to learn the lesson again. It's one move. You start with one move and then you take the next move.
And I love that what your initial steps were literally acknowledging it and admitting it. Like, we always think like, oh, let me flip to like what can I do now? Oh, I can go do the no, like let's start at the basics. Like let's acknowledge it and let's admit that we're here and that this has happened.
Yep, absolutely. And then, once you admit it, don't go back. And it sounds so simple and it's not.
Yeah. I think even the act of admitting it, acknowledging it, like, I have cancer. I am
Hmm.
going through a divorce. I am whatever the hard thing is for
Absolutely.
you in this moment, right? Um, and I love you have such a depth of experience in hard things. So if anybody's an expert at hard things, it's you. Um, Fortunately or unfortunately, these are hard lessons we learn to become the masters, right, of our domain.
Absolutely.
So you've built something really incredibly meaningful through Next Together,
Hmm.
and while still navigating your own journey. So I really want to know what you're focused on now, how people can connect with you, how people can find you, how they can work with you. Tell us all the things.
Okay. Yeah, Next Together is about helping people in the messy middle figure out who they are now and what comes next. Um, it really centers around people who are navigating major life transitions, but that could be anything. I mean, that could be anything. The feelings, regardless of the thing, are very similar. Um, and that's what I've found in all of the experiences. Uh, as my mother calls them, I had some bumps in the road, is what she said. Um,
Those are big
yeah,
bumps.
they were,
Those are big bumps.
some of them were bigger than others, and some of them were consequences, but hey, it gets you where you need to be. So really that's what the work focuses on. I'm currently accepting a limited number of client applications. You can apply on my website, which is nexttogether.co. Um, our core program is an 8 session one-on-one package. I have a couple of different options for that. If you're just going through something and you need some clarity, I offer a 2 hour single session one-on-one thing. So there's that. Other than that, I'm focusing not only on coaching, but also on advocacy, community support work. I'm currently onboarding as a CanCare volunteer. So that's going to be supporting cancer patients who are going through a similar journey like mine. I'm also excited to support One Cancer Place, which is patient-led advocacy. and helping cancer patients and caregivers feel informed and teaching them how to advocate for themselves. So lots going on there. Oh, and I'm also co-authoring in a book coming up.
Ooh,
Yeah,
okay.
the book is called Born to Risk. It's through the co-authors network, and that is produced, written by Emilio Roman. So I'm excited about that. That's a really meaningful opportunity to share my story more broadly. So that's going to be coming up, and then I'll be attending a mastermind for the book in August.
Wow.
So, yeah, lots of things going on.
And just for listeners, we will have all of Carrie's contact information, all of her website and everything in the show notes, so you can find it there. And I'm assuming that your information on your book will be on your website as well.
It will.
Okay, fabulous. Question: Do you? I know you are obviously a cancer patient advocate, and you are working with those kind of clients. Do you also work with people navigating divorce, navigating death, navigating things outside of cancer?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I am a life and crisis transition coach and mentor. And crisis is really an individual thing. I mean, that could be any of the things, right? I mean, it could be a bad haircut, quite honestly. But, I've been through miscarriage, I've been through marriage, divorce, marriage that turned out to be a total and absolute lie. I lost a spouse. Like you said, I've been homeless. It could be anything. It's really helping you figure out who you are. That's what the messy middle is, and who you're going to be when you come out the other side. I don't want people to be stuck and paralyzed in it, and I don't want anybody to feel like they have to do it alone.
Hmm. Well, and I think the other thing that's so lovely and refreshing about you is there is I guess unfortunately for you or fortunately for us, there's a lot of space to draw from when you are working with individuals. It's not like you're guessing. You're like, hey, look, I relate to this. I understand what you're going through, and let me help walk you through. Let's get you to the other side and to an even better other side, which doesn't feel like it right now, but eventually will be that other side that is good. And I love that because I think sometimes people don't connect with counselors or with folks that are helping them through transition because they're like that guy or that gal doesn't know what I'm talking about. They have they can't relate, and you absolutely can relate to just about everything. Um, you've had quite the life experience to draw from.
Yes, and it's a lot easier to see when you've been there. So it's hard to see when you're in the middle of it, but it's a lot easier to see from the outside when you've been there. Because I recognize this.
Right, right. You have a point of reference of some sort. Yeah. Okay, last question. I am so grateful that you've been on. I think just hearing your story and listening to your point of view on things is going to be so amazingly helpful for so many women that are listening, people that are listening. But the last question is, so at It's Not That Serious, we have a monthly WHIP series, which is stands for Women in Power, where we focus and highlight women in their own life story and something tough that they went through. But women in power can mean a lot of different things. So when you hear that phrase, what does being a whip or a woman in power actually mean to you?
Well, there was a time I would tell you it had something to do with a job. It had something to do with a position. And I suppose that I used to connect that to independence or productivity or resilience. And I do think that strength exists within those qualities. I do. But power is also vulnerability, it's honesty, it's boundaries. I don't want to use, I don't know what word to use. And I think that authenticity is very important, but I also think that that's a really overused word to be authentic anymore. But I think it's important. Um, Power is trusting yourself enough to stop abandoning yourself. And
I love
knowing you
that.
can't, yeah, knowing you can't do it alone. Knowing you can't do it alone.
That is real power because I think we so many people forget that and feel like vulnerability is not strength and it is absolutely strength. So thank you for being vulnerable with us today. I could keep
Sure.
talking to you for hours. Like I absolutely loved it and I am so excited for people to be able to connect with you on through your website and through the services that you're providing. And I'm so grateful that you are here today. Thank you for being a part of the It's Not That Serious universe. We're so happy to have you in our little bubble and hopefully giant bubble soon. So thank you so much for being here. Really, really appreciate it.
This has been delightful, Carrie. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Go to the website, get some good merch, get a mug, get a t-shirt, find all the podcast information. Thank you. Be good to each other. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Carrie, It's Not That Serious. If this conversation resonated, subscribe and share it with a woman in power in your life. You can find more conversations, more community, and all the fun INTS merch you love at itsnotthatserious.com. We're building something meaningful here, and I'm so glad you're a part of it. Until next time, remember, it's not that serious.